Well, we're going to be looking at a lot of Caro Kann things today, so let me give you permission for playing black and white. And I am aware that I've basically skipped over a lot of your wins. You did have some very nice wins in there, so this is not me
Mhm.
bullying you or anything like that. This is looking at the shortfalls. So can you see when I'm making moves on the board here?
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. So, yeah, what also really shocked me about a lot of these games is that people are playing the exchange with knight c3.
hmm
What goes through your mind when you see like this position?
Well, right here, usually I just go straight to developing like one of my knights. I don't really have an exact like plan, I'd say. Usually when I go into exchange, I like to do the G knight first
Mm-hmm.
and then just get both my knights out. Can you see these arrows?
Yeah, I can, mate.
Okay. And then I just go straight into castling.
Yeah?
I know what later on, like normally you do like a minority attack on the right side, but I yeah, I don't know. I don't really have an exact plan.
No, no, no. And that's I wouldn't expect you to have like a complete exact plan from this position. What I would like to point out though is that this knight on c3 is not very well placed.
Mhm.
Why might that be, do you know? And this is a really common thing that a lot of players do with white below 2000 in general.
Hmm. What? Man.
If you don't know, that's no problem, by the way.
Yeah, no, I can't find anything specifically why it wouldn't be
No,
too
no,
good of a move.
I can explain, don't worry. So, the reason this knight is not very good on c3 for the most part is from a purely positional standpoint, and this is positional in nature. But you can see that at some point we're going to bring this pawn to e6, right? So let's just put the pawn on
Yeah.
e6 for now. This knight can't do anything, again, like in the center, because
Mhm.
we dominate the light squares in the center of the board in typical Caro fashion. Normally, when you have a knight on c3, you have this, so you might play like a classical sort of Caro,
Yeah.
and this pawn on e4 supports the knight fighting for the light squares, right?
Mhm.
The problem is that when white makes this trade and then goes d4, is that there's no pawns to help the knight because if white wants to fight on the light squares, c4 needs to be the idea. And that has advantages and disadvantages, obviously. But if you look at like the Panov attack, for example, which is the best
Yeah.
example of this, you know, take c4, knight f6, knight c3. Now the knight on c3 is very well placed, right? It's fighting alongside the c4 pawn for the d5 square. Yeah?
Mhm.
And let's just say, for example, you get a position like this where the C pawn and the E pawn get traded. Well, then the knight is it's attacking the D5 pawn, which can't be defended by another pawn. Whereas in the position in the game, for example, we will play E6 at some point, and this knight will be doing nothing.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
So fundamentally, the knight on c3 is not very good. And it also poses other problems because let's say white doesn't like reroute it at some point, which generally will happen either via e2 or sometimes trying to get into c5. If white doesn't do that, it means this c2 pawn is stuck on c2. And really, as we saw with like the Panov positions, it should be either fighting for the light squares on c4 or coming to c3 and just keeping an eye on the d4 pawn. And you might get like a Carlsbad type structure with the pawn on e6 and the pawn on c3, right? And that comes with all of its own ideas. What the problem with the pawn on c2 is one, it's not participating in the game, but two, it's also a target. And if we can get like a bishop to f5, a rook to c8, for
Mm.
example, particularly if we can push this pawn up to b5 and b4 in the future, it could become a bit of an issue for white. Now, these are all a little bit abstract, these are slightly abstract ideas, but you're a good player. I know that you can understand what I'm saying to you, and it will all be situational, right? So sometimes it will be a great idea, sometimes your opponent will hang a piece, and that'll be far more important, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously, I've just spoken at you quite a bit there. I will say as well, and I'll demonstrate in a second. I would like you in these exchange positions to start with knight c6 rather than knight f6 in the future.
Okay.
There's a couple reasons for that. Firstly, is the knight on c6 stops bishop b5 from being as
Mm.
big of a problem at any point.
Yeah.
And I'll show you in a minute why that's important to note. Also, the knight on c6 stops any knight to e5 ideas from being too annoying,
Mm.
which can be pretty bad. And also, this knight on g8 can often come to e7. So you can often have positions where, let's say you have like knight c6, knight f3, let's just say bishop here, let's say bishop e2, e6, maybe castles, bishop d6. After something like, let's say bishop e3 in this position, you could put the knight on f6, but it's also completely viable on e2, and it might actually be better coming to the f5 square.
Mm.
And in some ways, it's similar to an advanced Caro Kann, because the d4 pawn could actually be a bit of a target because it's not properly defended by a pawn on c3.
Yeah.
So you can be a little bit flexible. It's not a major issue playing knight f6 first, but I think it's easy just to know, okay, in the exchange positions, we bring the b knight out first, because we also want to see what we're doing with this bishop. There can also be issues with queen b3 in some variations, with like queen b7 stuff, and I don't like getting into
Mm.
any of that. So having the knight on c6 can make that slightly easier to deal with. But okay, the game continues, knight f3, bishop g4, which is perfectly fine. And now after h3, you have the decision whether to take or whether to back up,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And here you're supposed to take, but do you know why?
Usually, though, my thinking is, what? Hmm. Normally, I take when I'm trying to like attack their d pawn or have a chance to get it, or at
Yeah,
least pressure it, so it removes the defender.
yeah, that makes
And if
sense.
I slide back, they could also do g4, and then
Hmm.
they like follow up with something like this. Um, with my bishop here.
Yeah, so that is all true. Now, to be fair, if something like bishop h5, g4, bishop g6, knight h4, do you think this is particularly concerning?
Oh no, because I could just move it out or just something here, move out of the way, or there's probably a tactic. Um, hmm. Not really. It's not really that concerning, even if they take. It just looks terrible
Yeah,
for them. Yeah.
exactly. You can just develop, and if they want to take, I mean, this is actually really good pressure,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Also, in these Caro positions, particularly in the exchange, it's not that deep if you give away your light squared bishop for a knight.
Mm.
Uh, I mean, as you know, I've seen you take on f3 many times. Sometimes to win a pawn, sometimes not even to win a pawn. But you know, if the game continues, I don't know, bishop e3, e6, we might even put this pawn on a6. Let's just say we have very good control of the light squares. We don't need a light squared bishop here, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's honestly not that big a deal. Now the problem with bishop h5 is not g4 followed by knight h4. It's knight e5. That's the issue.
Yeah.
Because now you see the potential pitfalls of not having the knight on c6 already.
Mm-hmm.
Because white has a pretty nasty positional threat in this position. And I saw you also play the Jabava London, and while I don't know loads and loads about it, I do know there are ideas of this sort of bringing a knight into
Yeah.
e5 and going after the bishop.
Hmm.
And I will say
Yeah.
I
Wow.
have been
It's
caught
exactly the
before.
same.
Yeah, and I mean I have been caught in this type of thing before, which I'm sure you can see looks horrific.
Hmm.
And that's why I would like you to play knight to c6 first,
Yeah.
partially. Because if we get the exact same line now with pawn h3, taking is still the best move, but it's not as bad even if you do fall for something like this. It's not quite as bad, basically. Because at least you're not succumbing to bishop b5 problems on the knight, because it's already there.
Hmm.
I mean, here, obviously, you'd just be winning the pawn, sorry, although you would be giving up d5, so, like, you probably just want to go e6 anyway, and, again, giving up the light square bishop, not that big a deal. But, yeah, as a Jabava player, I think just noticing the similarities of that pawn storm with the black side of the exchange Caro Kann and the black side of the Jabava, just being aware of that will probably help you to avoid those mistakes.
Yeah.
But okay, I mean, and the reason I point that out is because it was a possibility in like 2 or 3 games that I saw, which is why I'm pointing it out.
Yeah.
And you're saying you want to push for 1800, and people will start to take advantage of those things. So
Hmm.
should just be aware of it. It's fair enough not to see that. It is a bit of a combination. But yeah, other than that, I'm just nitpicking there. But okay, here, fair development. Again, the problem is g4, really. There is also this knight to b5 idea, which, interestingly, this is very similar to a Jabava London, I suppose, which, yeah, is actually very
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, yeah, it is. And I mean, after something like knight to c6, I'm not going to pretend like I know all of the theory here because I don't play the Jabava. But if you can just recognize those similarities, I think you'd be able to handle it better with the black pieces in the future. So, okay, you get out of the opening around here, maybe, moving into the middle game now. And what are you kind of thinking in this position? Like, what do you think the plans should be for you?
Well, immediately, just like not really planned, but next couple moves definitely getting into castling.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I saw you move it here, either here or here, likely. I tend to put the bishop here. I feel like it gets annoying sometimes, or I can't really maneuver well when I have it on the d6 square. So probably going for this in castle, and then from this position, ooh, maybe I would try to probably put my rook on this square.
Well,
Maybe
I
try
mean,
to get their bishop away.
it depends what white does, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, So, I'm not asking for a fully fledged plan, but I again, yeah, did notice a lot of bishop e7.
Hmm.
The bishop is just better on d6 generally.
Okay.
Like, and it's quite an important, well, not important is the wrong word, an interesting idea, right? So here, obviously, you're offering a bishop trade, which is perfectly fine because in the same way that in this kind of it's not quite the pyramid type thing, but the bishop is well sheltered behind all the light squared pawns, right? Even if you get this trade, the queen is still pretty well sheltered behind those pawns. But also, with a bishop on d6 or a queen on d6, or supporting a knight coming via h5, the f4 square can be really, really useful.
Mm.
I've had many like sort of games where, let's say the bishop comes to like e3 or something, and we just play some normal developing moves, some like castles, bishop d6. Let's say rook e1, castles, a3, queen c7. Obviously here there's knight b5, but for the sake of
Hmm.
argument, there is sometimes an idea of bishop to f4 to try and gain access to the f4 square for the queen or something, which can also be really nice for putting pressure on this knight. Um, I don't know if you play the Tartakower very much with the black pieces.
Mm-mm.
No, it's a big idea in
Mm.
that as well, but it's kind of trying to take advantage of the fact that white doesn't have a pawn on e3 like we do on e6. So we can
Yeah.
try and take advantage of this f4 square as kind of an entry point into the white position.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting thing to keep an eye on when you can make this kind of battery with the queen and the bishop. You may think that sometimes, oh, it's not really doing anything. Like, why bother? Um,
Yeah.
one, these are just useful squares in general. Any G3 things where we immediately sack in the majority of
Yeah.
cases, right? We're taking up the E5 square, which in these structures, the general idea is for white to try and put his knight on E5 if he can. So just taking more control of that E5 square is really useful. Um, and also getting on the C file is never going to be a bad
Mm.
thing. Obviously, just watch for getting forked like this, but just showing you for the sake of argument. But okay, this game, yeah, castle's absolutely fine, and this is, while I may say, oh, this bishop would be better on d6, maybe this knight could have come to e7. At the end of the day, you're fully developed. White has this awkward knight on c3, and you kind of have the ideal setup for all of your pieces, right?
Yeah.
This is effectively a dream position. I mean, here you double up white's pawns, and everything is
Hmm.
fantastic. If white plays a, let's say, a better move, like, I don't know, for example, maybe queen to d3. Here there is some knight b4 stuff, but let's just say we have a rook on c8 and this pawn comes to a3 or something. Okay, there's also a pawn hanging, so this is actually a really
Yeah.
bad example. I'm trying to just get a position where nothing is hanging. Let's how are we gonna do this? I want this. Let me just move my king a sec. Just put this rook here. Bring the king back. Okay,
Yeah.
this is better.
Okay.
What's the plan?
Here I kind of like trying to push this bishop out a little bit. Maybe personally here, I think if I was playing, I would do a6.
Yeah, yeah, which I think is
Yeah,
very natural. I think that's a
I
very
think I'd
natural
go
move.
a6.
Obviously, wait, let me just triangulate the white king real quick. Yeah, so here a6 would be great. If something like bishop back. By the way, do you have the engine on?
Yeah, it shows on the side.
Okay, turn that off. Turn that off.
Yeah, let me get that off. How do I get this off? Um, how do I get this thing off? I'm just gonna cover it. I have a little thing from Zoom. I'm covering it. Okay. I
That
can't see
works.
anything.
So if bishop takes, how are we taken?
Here, well, I'd have to take with the rook here.
Yep.
Because the queen.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And I
I
mean,
go here.
even if the pawn wasn't hanging, rook takes probably still makes more
Better.
sense, right?
Yeah. I want to keep the c file.
Hmm. And I mean, in this position, white could try and go for this knight e5 idea. There's some tactics involved, obviously. Um, I don't really think you struggle loads with tactics, to be fair, from what I've
Okay.
seen. So, from like a positional standpoint, what do you think black can go for from this position?
Hmm.
So let me just play a
So
move
yeah,
that I think is decent with white. Let me just think. Let's say, I mean, I do hate the white position, but you know, let's just say we go for, let's say bishop e5, right?
yeah, okay. Here I guess I could look at taking that knight here just so they could waste time with the queen. Well, now I think taking the knight just to get their queen out of the way from this area of the board, so I could try to get something going here with maybe my queen behind this pawn and use the
Is
rook,
is
something
the
like
white
that.
queen stopping you from doing that though?
I guess it's not yeah, because if I just go straight away, there's nothing they can really do.
Hmm.
And it's probably important to do it more quickly so they can't stop it with their pawns beforehand. Yeah, so I guess I could just go straight away with something like this.
Yeah, I like that. I
Yeah.
like that.
Okay.
Like, you know, these positions are always difficult, I think, for people to figure out themselves using the engine because this is like the engine's fifth favorite move or something. But to
Yeah.
me, I think it's the most logical approach because, you know, it wants things like bishop g6, which, okay, yeah, makes sense. It wants queen
Yeah.
b6, sure, applying a bit of pressure, knight d7, okay, I understand that. But b5 seems to me the most clear cut way to approach the position, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're
Absolutely.
trying to play for b4 ideas. If we can get a5, b4, then brilliant. And I guess as well, you know, we have this constant idea of bishop g6
Yeah.
going after that c2 pawn. Now, why I really hate your suggestion of taking on f3 is there's a lot of like latent potential in this
Pressure.
bishop,
Yeah.
particularly because
Yeah.
white obviously can't counter you with his own light squared bishop. You have these two diagonals with quite a few targets on them that you can use whenever you want.
Yeah.
Um, I think also what's kind of nice about having this bishop around h5 and g6 is it also kind of allows your queen and bishop to not have to defend the knight because there are quite a few positions where if bishop f6 is played, like here, the engine evaluates bishop takes and g takes almost the same
Same. Wow.
because you can just whack this bishop on the g6 square, and this is actually a surprisingly solid structure.
Mm.
It's kind of similar to a Tartakower, where I will show you what I mean in a second, where this pawn on f6 heavily restricts the movement of this knight. And as I said before, in these structures, one of white's main ideas is getting the knight into the e5 square. But his pawn on f6 stops any of that.
Yeah.
And obviously, the bishop can always drop back to cover the king if necessary. Um, I mean, here you obviously have the bishop pair, which is great. You've got the queenside pressure, which is great. But this kind of structure with the bishop coming back to g6, I've always found a really useful concept. And also, if the bishop is ever taken on g6, you can always take back with the h pawn, put the king on
Mm.
g7, and this is really, really solid. It's quite
Yeah.
a nice transformation of the structure. So, what I'm talking about with the Tartakower, right, is if we have a classical Caro, we go take take, knight f6, take take, and knight f3. This knight f3 move is a you could call it an inaccuracy. I would call it an inaccuracy because I mean it's the concept of the pawn being two squares in front of the knight,
Yeah.
right? Keeping the knight out of the position very nicely. And even though it's a doubled pawn, it serves quite a nice function. And it's kind of the same in the position that we were just looking at, right? With
Hmm.
this idea. So, okay. The game continues queen d2, you ruin the structure, and this is all well and good, really, right? Taking control. And by the way, this f4 square comes into play.
Yeah.
Very useful square. Knight goes back, which is white fighting for the same squares, really. And here, I think you end up taking on g3, which kind of lets white back into the game because he can
Mm.
fix his structure. The engine will suggest knight takes, allowing to fix the structure and then going queen to b6. I'm not going to lie, I mean, even
No.
if the engine suggests this, from a practical perspective, I think it's a bit silly, which is, you've got to be careful when using engines. But in this position, if you could redo it, how would you play?
Yeah, I'm just kind of trying to look here because I know I definitely was trying to before the night came to like win a pawn here.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's difficult for me to try to get any of those. Mm, mm. Yeah, no, I don't even know how I would. Maybe I could bring a knight back here to e7.
With the
I don't know
intention
anything
of doing
immediately.
what? There
Maybe
doesn't
bring
have to
it
be
here.
anything immediate. I I very much like that idea.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of that. Just rerouting the knight. If something like knight e7 and bishop d3, trying to play against knight to
Mhm.
f5, how might you continue?
Mm.
And I'm not saying there's necessarily a correct answer,
Yeah, exact
or
move.
anything like that.
I guess you can still play this because if they take, you have the pawn push. But I guess because they have their queen there, maybe something's telling me to do this, but I feel like that just can't be correct just because it doesn't make much sense. Um,
I think that
maybe this, maybe pushing the f pawn. I don't
I
know
think you're
why, but
trying to look for a knockout blow when there isn't a
yeah,
knockout blow. And
yeah.
I've gathered you seem to struggle with sitting on a good position,
Mm-hmm.
which like again it is a really difficult thing to do, to just maintain the advantage, keep asking questions of the white position. But like for example, I
Yeah.
I, I love the move knight e7. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
great. Like you're trying to add another piece over to the king side. And if white doesn't realize what you're trying to do, plays a move like c3, you get knight to f5. I mean, yeah, this looks gorgeous, right? This is
Yeah.
fantastic. Maybe a knockout blow will come from this. But if your opponent realizes what you're doing and tries to stop you, it's one of those positions where it's like, okay, you want to force something, but it's not
Yeah.
there. You need to
Mm-hmm.
make general improving moves because like obviously you've got to look for what white wants to do, but yeah, you're highlighting that rook. Absolutely, a move
Something
like
like
rook
this.
c8. Sorry,
Yeah.
yeah, there we go. It's not the most accurate move, sure, but I mean it's fine. It's a good move. Your opponent isn't going to play all the top computer moves and go, well, this is actually only minus zero point 0.7 instead of minus zero point 0.9 because I have this. Like, it's not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
And you can relax a bit. Like you play a move like this, maybe white goes c3, just trying to bolster his position. How could you continue improving?
So we do something like this. Um, I don't know how that really improves exactly though. Yeah, I guess this just seems like it doesn't change much, but I guess you could take space in the future.
Yeah, that is definitely an
Yeah,
idea, and it's not wrong. It's not
I'm
wrong.
trying to find a move that actually improves. but I can't find anything specifically that I feel like. Um, hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I'd probably, if I just had to improve the position without trying to find like an exact,
Hmm.
like tactic or something, I'd play something like that.
Yeah, yeah, and that wouldn't be wrong at all. What I was sort of hoping that you'd go for is what I was mentioning earlier with creating this battery.
Oh, yeah,
And the reason
yeah.
why I think it's quite a useful idea in this position particularly is because we are fighting over these squares like so much, right? And you may think, bishop d6, queen d6, why have I wasted time going queen c7, right? But time is not so much of the essence here. Like,
Mhm.
if if pieces get traded, only you are going to win with this structure being that
Yeah.
bad. Only you can win this position. So you can relax a little bit. As I said before, the queen on d6 is very well placed behind these pawns, and you can still go for your plan of a6 and b5. You can still absolutely go for that. Um, like let's say, I mean, the engine thinks queen g5 is the only move that holds here. Let's just say, I don't
Mhm.
know, rook c1 or something.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with a6 b5. Nothing wrong at all with it. Perfectly valid plan. And having a plan is better than having no plan, even if it's not the best one, right?
Mhm.
So, okay, I don't think we need to massively look at the game from here. I don't think. I did like b takes c6 though. Wanted to just point that out. Oh no, there was actually something I wanted to mention. It was in this position here. I wanted to have a look
Mhm.
at this. I think it's safe to say the king side attack is gone, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
You're probably thinking to yourself like, "Oh, I've messed something up there. I've fixed this pawn structure for him, and
Mhm.
I've thrown away a really good position." You're probably thinking something like that. There is still good opportunity for play on the queen side, particularly because you have this pawn minority where you can try and open up lines against the white pawns, and we'll get into a little bit more of that later. Um, I think, yeah, I I think
Yeah.
I just
This
didn't
doesn't.
like the fact that you were trying to fixate on the attack. I think that was
Yeah.
all, and I think an interesting concept is that Queen C7, the idea of this weak pawn on G3 isn't going anywhere, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It will exist all like basically forever. I mean, maybe white plays f4 so that queen c7 doesn't come with a tempo. But these pawns are still like potentially a bit overextended, right?
Mhm.
So if something like c5 is played and you're focusing on the queen side, queen c7, queen d6, they're always going to be options, and it kind of allows your queen to have a bone, like to see more squares than she can, if that makes sense. Like, for example, let's say, just for the sake of argument, we have this position, right? Your queen can currently see all of these squares, but at any point, she can move to d6 with a tempo, which means that in theory, she can actually see
See
far more
more.
squares. So it's kind of keeping the move in the back pocket, the threat being greater than the execution type idea.
Mm.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Cool, cool. By the way, if at any point you have a question, just jump in. Do you have any questions
Yeah.
so far?
Not right now. I did want to say I do actually play the Tartakower. I just didn't realize that's what it was called. So I guess I do play it sometimes when it ends up going that way. So yeah.
Okay, okay, bro. Okay. But yeah, so I guess you understand the concept of the pawn being on f6 and the knight on f3 in
Hmm.
those positions then.
Yeah.
And if if you're not already aware, in the Tartic hour, in the same way that I was stressing in this sort of position that f4 is such a vital square, it's the same in the
Mhm.
Tartic hour in
Yeah.
most lines. But okay, I don't think I wanted to look at any more of that game. To be fair, it's
Yeah.
not actually that relevant. Where was the next one I wanted to look at? Yes, this one I thought was interesting. Let me just share this game over to the classroom real quick. Um, Honestly, the classroom feature is great, but it's really, really finicky. There we go. Okay,
Yep.
can you see this new game?
Hmm.
Okay, bro. So
Oh, this was
here,
recent. Jeez.
uh,
Okay.
yeah, no, this was today.
Oh my.
Okay, this was earlier today. So again, we have this knight c3, which I honestly just can't believe so many people play it.
Yeah.
Um, Again, knight f6 in the
F3. That's
future.
excellent.
Sorry, knight c6. I would prefer.
Hmm.
Another idea to be aware of is in some of the main lines of the exchange, which you will see more as you progress. Something like bishop d3. This is the
Yeah.
better line for white. Do you know why this is better?
I guess it's not. Hmm. So it kind of goes with this idea you said with the C pawn. It allows for the C pawn to go front first, and then I guess quick castling.
Yeah.
I don't know anything specific though,
No,
besides
that's
that.
fine. That's fine. And that is true. Going for this c3 type thing is kind of the way to play for white to start some kind of kingside attack, which is how you should play the structure. Um, it also stops your light squared bishop from developing.
Uh,
That's a
yeah.
really big idea. And, your opponents aren't really stopping you from developing your bishop. So you'll often see lines where you'll play like knight c6, and people will play like pawn c3. And here again, we still can't develop the bishop. And the move queen
Hmm.
c7 is a really, really nice idea. Do you know why this might be a strong move?
Not really. Not really.
No, that's no problem. So it's partially a waiting move because we obviously want to go e6, bishop d6, knight f6, or e7 in castles, right? We want to
But
do
you don't
that.
block this. You don't block the light square bishop in
Yeah,
case they
exactly.
play something like this.
Yeah, so we want to keep options open for the bishop. So if knight f3, well then bishop g4, and this is
Hmm.
perfect. Another added bonus of playing queen c7 is that we're playing against bishop f4.
Hmm.
So we're trying to stop that so that we can create our battery with the queen and the bishop aiming down to h2.
Yeah.
So that's also quite a useful idea. And so you'll often see people playing like h3 in this position, preparing knight to f3 simply to try and stop you from developing your bishop. And
Hmm.
what I'll actually do is I don't think you're in my school community right now, are you?
I'm not.
No, so I will add you to it as a bit of a bonus, and these exchange lines with like h3, there's some interesting concepts in that course as well, which I think you'll find really useful.
Okay.
You won't see many people playing like this at your level, but
Yeah.
the point I just want to get across is that white should be trying to play against your light squared bishop. And if he can
Hmm.
make you play like e6, and you'll still get your bishop to d6, something like castles, knight e7, let's say bishop g5. Here f6 is an idea, but I have to say I'm not a fan of it. I think it's far too theory heavy and risky trying to play for
Mhm.
e5. After something like castles, okay, your position is good, but your bishop is kind of stuck on c8, which isn't the best thing in the world.
Yeah.
Um, but okay, yeah, people are not playing like that, so you don't have to worry about that for now. But as you progress, you'll see that more. So knight c3, knight f6, check, bishop d7. This is all very good. And what I found interesting about this game is one, you bring your queen out early a lot, and
Mm.
it's not bad. It's just kind of unnecessary.
Yeah.
I mean, we can probably just develop like this. And if bishop to f4, I mean, rook c8 should be
Mhm.
fine. a7 is defended. As a Jabava player, again, you're probably more familiar with these ideas than I am. And here, white kind of has two options as to whether he plays c3 and brings the knight back to a3, or if he brings the knight back to c3, and then we have the same problem with the white knight being misplaced, right?
Yeah.
But okay, yeah. I just wanted to say, like, don't be so gung-ho with the queen. If we can
Mhm.
get ourselves developed and castled first, then you can play your queen moves. And sometimes queen b6 does pick up material, to be fair. And
Yeah.
I've seen you several times play it and pick up the d4 pawn, which is brilliant. And I think you are aware of the fact that b2 can be poisoned in a lot of positions,
Mhm.
which is also good that you're aware of. But yeah, in these types of positions, like, it can often be easier just to get yourself castled and not have to worry about loads of weird tactics and your queen being misplaced. One thing I actually started realizing recently is, particularly in these exchange structures, the queen on b6 can be more awkward than she is helpful, because
Yeah.
it gets in the way of
Blocks the
the
pawns.
minority attack, which, yeah, can be quite annoying. And
Mhm.
there's been so many games I've played where the best move, like 5-10 moves down the line, has been to bring my queen back to d8, just because she should have stayed there to begin with.
Yeah.
But okay. Um, Random tangent done with. This is all perfectly fine. Very good. Getting castled. And again, this is great. We've got an exchange with the light squared bishops off the board. And if that's going to favor anyone, it's going to be black, because obviously we have these pawns on light squares. And also, the white bishop on d3 is typically white's best attacking piece.
Mm.
So the fact that he doesn't have that is a massive bonus for us. And I'll run you through some positions later if we have time, with white setting up properly for the king's side attack, and just showing you that that can actually be quite hard to deal with. But this is all good. Before, oh, I remember why I wanted to look at this game. What what do you think White's ideas are here?
Well, definitely trying to continue something like this. I guess they can't right now with this, but pressure this side of the board with their two pawns. They're also just protecting this in the center. So maybe something with the trying to do something like that.
Yeah, that can be quite difficult to deal with.
Or
Um,
this.
yeah, this is really, really annoying, this maneuver.
Hmm.
Um, Particularly with pawns on b4 and d4.
Yeah.
However, there is a bit of a flaw in the white position. What do you think it could be?
Hmm. Jeez, I don't know. I can't pick anything up right away. This could
Okay,
be a move,
okay,
but
that's
yeah.
no problem. Um, it stems from the like move 3 or 4 or whatever it was when White played knight to c3.
Mm.
It's the fact that this is a backwards
C,
pawn, right?
C file. Yeah.
C file. If you can use it, it's an easy target because this pawn is going to struggle to get to c4 and trade itself off, right? I assume you understand like what a backwards pawn is, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a lot going on in this position, but to be able to understand that it's a general thing for this pawn to be a problem and be able to put your rook on c8, and it's like, okay, you're not winning the pawn immediately, sure, but it's always going to be an issue because, again, it can never make it to c4 safely, particularly if your rook is ready to go.
Hmm.
So maybe it comes to c3, still a target, and if we had a bishop, that would be amazing, but White also doesn't have his bishop to defend either. We're not going to win that pawn immediately. But if we have a rook on the c file, it's always going to be applying pressure, right?
Yeah.
And you are also right to point out the knight to e4 idea, because one of the downsides of White trying this knight a4 maneuver, which by the way is another reason why the queen can be a bit of a liability.
Yeah.
Um, I've fallen for that kind of thing myself. I'm speaking from experience. Is that it could allow our knight into e4, which could be quite useful. Maybe force a move like f3, which is just going to be weakening. And in those types of positions, actually, let's say, for example, White plays a move like rook c1, trying to defend. We can sometimes go for this sort of maneuver, bringing the knight back to d6 and
Mm.
using c4 for ourselves. Because again, this pawn's never making it. But
Yeah.
we just need to watch knight c5. Maybe we have to throw in b6 to try and stop that. But having the pawn minority is a big advantage for us in this position because we have an open file on the queen side, and White's open e file is not all that useful because he's not
Hmm.
getting anything to the e5 square as he should be. But okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah. Using the C file. That's something that a lot of times I find myself just placing the rook there because I know I'm supposed to because it's weak, and then I never really build anything around it or get anything out of it, I feel like. So, yeah,
Yeah,
but
and I
yeah, with this
mean,
move,
to be fair, you're not always going to get something out of it. It's not always going to happen. Something
mhm,
could happen elsewhere on the board, and you've got to spend your time dealing with that or getting a winning position through something else on the board, and that's not a problem at all. We just have a lot of potential energy on the C file.
yeah,
We're looking at weak squares effectively, and that can't be a
mhm.
bad thing. So yeah, rook fd8. Can I ask what, because this was played today, right? Can I ask what the idea is behind that?
Okay. Now, I'm trying to think. I kind of have like some remnant of thought of what I was thinking. And I think at some point I was like, the queen is on the same file. So if it opens up, I'll get something. But my pawn's here. So it kind of like, it doesn't really make much sense. But there was some thought of like, I have some pressure in here on the center. So if it opens up, it could be useful, but it doesn't really make much sense now
No,
looking
no,
at
that
it.
that I've got to say, once you've explained that, I don't mind that. That makes sense. Like, sure, it's not the best move, but not terrible. And yeah, maybe some knight e4 stuff could work with things opening up on d4, particularly if bishop f6 can be involved as well.
Mm, yeah.
So no, that's fine. And again, the engine doesn't love it, but it's a plan, and that's good to have a plan. I will say though, you can use a little bit of time in these positions. You've got a lot of time left, and we are a whole 15 moves in, so
Yeah.
you can chill a bit, okay? You can take your time a
Yeah.
bit.
I think I may have came off of playing a bullet game and went straight into this, and it may have transferred over. So yeah.
Yeah, you might be right. Um, okay, yeah, this is something that is really hard to. It's hard to articulate. This a5 move is so tempting against this from white.
Mhm.
Now, there's actually an over the board game I had, which I don't know if I'm able to pull it up or not, but let me see if I can. But it features that idea heavily in it, and it's basically, when white expands with a3 and b4, whether you can go for um for a5 or not, right? And it's not
Mhm.
easy to say a lot of the time. Okay, I'm not sure I'm finding it. This? No. Sorry, give me 1 sec just to quickly see if I can find it. No. Okay, whatever, that's fine. But basically, this idea of a5, there's a lot of possibilities that white has. He can take, he can push, and this knight to a4 move
Knight.
often can exploit the placement of the queen. And
Yeah.
that game is what really drilled home this early queen b6 being bad for me, because I had to sit there and suffer for like 2 hours trying to figure out this queenside pawn play, and I was like, every single line my queen was bad on b6, and
Mhm.
it was very frustrating. But the point is that even if knight a4 doesn't exist, even if our queen is back on d8, there is still this idea of b5, and your opponent didn't go for this. Knight a4 was the best move, which your opponent did play. But you've got to be very careful that your knight just doesn't get cut off from the game entirely by these pawns.
Yeah.
Um, if you can bring it back in via c8 and b6, or even d6, okay. But there will be lines in like the advanced variation, for example, where white is fighting you on the c file, and you actually can't use the c8 square, and the knight can get stranded over here on a7. Sometimes it's
Mhm.
better to bring it back to b8 because of that, but in general, keeping the tension on the queen side is also a viable thing to do, and just not lunge, because
Yeah.
it is risky to give white the space like that. And also, if white prematurely plays pawn b5, what is different if white goes b5 without you going a5?
To move the knight here, and then you could have it on c4 later.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a really common idea in, again, both the advance and the exchange when you are playing on the queen side like this, is that it's a weird kind of game where white wants you to play a5 because then b5 does work because your knight can't come to
Mhm.
a5, and you want white to go b5 so that you can use the a5 square, right? So
Yeah.
it's quite an interesting sort of counterbalance where neither side wants to commit. But here, okay, yeah, we have a
Yeah.
funny little sacrifice. It's not that big a deal. Your opponent, I don't know if he messed this up or not. No, I don't think he did.
No.
But that's not that big a deal. It's just a tactical mishap.
I
Yeah,
feel like
which
after I saw the queen get hit, I kind of went into like, oh, I'm losing now. Time to try something tactical. And yeah, it didn't work out.
But like, if you were gonna, like, if I play this from the white side, for example, and you try to hold this with black, like, can you try to hold this position?
Hmm. Black move. Okay. We
Let me
definitely
just
have to
turn
move
off
the
the
queen.
engine.
Oh yeah, of course. Um, hmm. Well, I guess you'd have to move the queen back to here so you wouldn't hang it. Is there any? I don't even think there's anywhere else it can go. So I'd start with this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
And
upside down.
then
Is that? Yeah.
and then I push
Okay.
forward.
Hmm. Jeez. Okay. Well, then I have to go here. Can't even. I can't sacrifice her.
And don't get me wrong, this is a bad position for black, right? But
Yeah.
it is playable. Like, you can still play this, and
Mhm.
you do have the very nice pressure on the c file that is going for you. Like, white
Yeah.
still can't execute c4. And for example, I think a move like b6 would probably be tempting for a lot of people, but I think would also be a bit of an overcommitment.
Oh wait, no, I could put it here then, I guess. All right. That would I bet I guess putting it on A6 would be better so I can get my knight out of this hole.
That's probably what I would be thinking, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Um, but yeah, I mean, like, my point is, in this kind of position, this is, even though you are a bit cramped here, it's not resigned territory, and it's also not throw in the kitchen sink, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
You can play a position where you know you're worse and suffer a little bit, but you still have some things going for you, namely the C file. Also,
Yeah.
knight e4 could be an idea, that sort of thing, right?
Mhm.
Um, it's something that I've started trying to do myself a lot recently, like trying to play, even just play for a draw in positions that I know I should
Yeah.
lose, and actually trying to find that kind of fun, you know.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, okay. My point basically was, though, even though this is very bad in theory, there are also ways that white can overextend, and here the engine actually
Yeah.
thinks this is equal, which, I
Yeah.
mean, great
Crazy.
result. But okay, yeah, no, we can leave that game there. Just a little bit of panic, which, yeah, I mean, you're not going to play every game perfectly. That's understandable, but um, what was the next one I wanted to go for? Oh, I also wanted to mention um your line against the fantasy. I think this is actually
Oh,
worth touching on.
yeah.
Um, can I? Can you play from the black side of this?
Yeah. So I'm upside down, but I guess I'm trying
I
to
think
look.
you can flip
Oh, can
it
I
if
just
you
will it
hover the
rotate for you?
mouse. No, no, no.
Okay. Okay. Oh, why does it flip every time? That's weird. Okay.
Is that working for you now?
Yeah, it's good. So honestly, I've never really looked into these types of lines. I've seen like where there's stuff like this and there's pressure here, but every
Yes.
time I go into a line like this, I feel like I mess something up or I just don't really know and it goes wrong.
Yeah, I was looking at some of your games in the fantasy, and There were some
Yeah.
interesting lines, but I felt like you were never you never seemed comfortable in any of them.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, Again, I check out the school course when I send you that over.
Yeah.
But I would highly recommend. I don't cover Queen B6 in the school, but it
Hmm.
is a way to play. I personally really like E6,
Okay.
just playing a little bit more solid. And there's still a lot of tactical ideas with like similar to E5, going for like take and queen to H4 stuff that often
Yeah.
exists. But I personally find that to be a more solid option. But I would say probably find another line against the fantasy because I don't think
Yeah.
the E5 stuff is
Yeah.
working.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I just wanted to mention that just because the fantasy can be difficult to deal with, so you do want to have something you're comfortable with against it. Yes, this is another one I wanted to look at. There are so many exchange Caro Kanns. I hope you don't mind going through quite a few of
No.
them.
Yeah.
Good, because I think that with the amount of people playing them, like if you can nail down some of these ideas, it's really, really going to help you.
Yeah.
Um, so okay, yeah, this again, knight c3. All right then, again, knight to f6.
Hmm.
What are we doing here in future? Why?
Um. Wait. Wait. Because you could get positions like this with your knight there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what else was there? There was some other reason. I don't know the other reason. I can't remember.
No, no, that's fine. That's why I'm throwing it in to
Yeah,
try and
thank
catch
you.
you off guard. Um, Another reason is, I mean, you could say applying pressure to D4 to be fair, but also trying to
Yeah.
play against any
Oh,
weird knight
protect that.
E5 stuff and making
Hmm.
sure bishop B5
And
doesn't
the
come with
bishop.
check.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, it keeps you a bit more flexible, basically.
Hmm.
But okay, same sort of concepts apply here. This is another game where you went bishop H5 and your opponent didn't take
Didn't get
advantage
it.
of it.
Yeah.
But okay, this is perfectly fine now for you. This is ideal. A3. I mean, I will say I don't quite understand why the bishop isn't coming out to F4. I guess because people are putting their knights on C3, they're probably concerned about their D4 pawn. And
Yeah, with the pin, you want to like
y-
overprotect it.
yeah, and I guess whenever you are seeing something like this, it does give you possibilities of Queen B6, but I would be cautious when playing it,
Hmm.
just because you don't want to have your queen out unnecessarily. But okay, normal moves: knight c6, g4, bishop back, knight to h4, and this actually brings us all the way back to the start of the call, where we had a similar sort of thing with the
Yeah.
knight attacking the bishop. And the reason I paid a bit of attention to that is because I remembered that you played bishop to e4 here.
Mm.
And I understand you're trying to provoke a move like f3. And that's not necessarily wrong either. But we, my advice would be to just ignore white. If he's going to waste time with this and give you an open H file, let him, you know?
Hmm.
And we can play something like bishop d6, take
Yeah.
and take. We can still castle kingside if we really want to be fair. That's also completely reasonable. But if you also wanted to go for something like a6, queen c7 to stop any queen b5 stuff, try and
Yeah.
fight for these dark squares, this would be a position where I think bishop f4 would be quite good as well. So if you
Hmm.
have like, let's say, I don't know, bishop g2, a6, let's say castles and queen c7, for
Yeah.
example,
Of course.
here I'd be looking at queen f4 things because they look quite interesting.
Yeah.
Potentially. But okay, here this is still absolutely fine for us. This pawn on f3, yeah, creates a bit of a weakness on this diagonal. Controls e4, so give and take. This is perfectly fine. I think here, yeah, queen e7, which isn't the worst move in the world. I think he went for some bishop a3 thing, which
Yeah.
ended up working out quite nicely. Or if that was another game. No, I think it was this game. And it did work out quite well, to be fair. And I'm not against that whatsoever. As a bit of an improvement, though, I think there's an easier way to attack.
The
What do
pawns
you think it
first.
could be?
I guess just starting with. Let me take a look here. Yeah, I guess just starting with a6, and then you can get these moving along, just to prevent the knight coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, like, a6, b5, looking for b4 ideas, bringing in knight to c4 even. I think it's a little bit less risky, as in, like, it can't be bad.
Yeah.
But also, I guess it keeps your pieces more flexible. And if we get a position like this, it's worth
Hmm.
noticing the clamp we have on the c4 square. Now, most
Yeah.
of the time, this king will be over on the king side, obviously, in these types
Hmm.
of positions. It's very rare to see castle queen side. But having the clamp on the c pawn, I would personally say is a very, very nice thing to have because it just makes it impossible for white to get rid of the problem.
Yeah.
Um, but okay. Again, that's slightly abstract, but I think it's useful to just notice that. Yeah, rook c8 is fine. I mean, the engine doesn't love it. It wants like a6 again, but I have no
Hmm.
issue with rook c8, to be fair. And then taking, I don't hate it. I don't hate it. It's complicated, and that's not necessarily a bad thing in these opposite side castle in positions. I mean, the only move for white to be winning is like knight d5, and
Yeah,
even
that's
if your opponent finds this, this is still not simple. I don't think. Like queen d8, knight f6, gf6,
mm,
still interesting, and you still have attacking prospects. But okay, yeah, and I will just show everyone that you went on to win quite a cool game. Um, I think your opponent did he? Yeah, I think he gave you his queen, which was quite nice.
yeah.
But yeah, um, that was just another example of an exchange variation. Now, okay, with you saying that you play the Tartakawa in mind, let if you play this from the black perspective, show me what you would play.
Okay.
And then let's say I
Yeah.
go c3.
Usually play something like this first.
Mm-hmm.
Castle. I don't get it often, but maybe we'd go knight here.
Yeah, I assume you don't get 92 very often.
Yeah.
But do you know why this is a better setup for white?
Hmm. I guess we could talk about the f4 square protects that we were saying
Mm-hmm.
earlier. Like that's an idea. Um, yeah, and I guess you could also play for this, which blocks the battery. Like if you ever put the knight here, like if you're because usually I try to go for something like this with the battery. And I
Uh-huh.
guess the knight's there to protect.
Yeah, it can be. Um, I mean, the main thing is the knight on f3 is not very well placed, because of what we were talking about
'Cause
before,
yeah, okay, yeah.
and also this pin is
Mhm,
the most annoying thing ever for white to deal with. But also the knight on e2, it can come to f4 to look for trades. So, for example, if something like knight d7 castles, let's say rook to e8, in some positions, white can look for bishop f4, trying to get a trade like this. Or
mm,
even if queen c7, trading on d6 and going like knight g3 into f5. This is an example of where, like, to be honest, if both sides play properly in the Tartakower, f4 and f5 are like the squares alongside the e file that you need
mm,
to watch out for. And what you also need to consider in the Tartakower with black at all times is that the white's pawn majority is very, very scary because white is basically just 2 moves away from creating a pass pawn.
mhm,
And so in basically every endgame, if the pawn structure remains as is, black is going to be worse.
yeah,
So a lot of the time, white is very happy to just trade pieces, get into a king and knight endgame or something, and just create a pass pawn very quickly. But yeah, if knight to f3, then does your plan change?
yeah, I'd go for the pin probably right away, or or you could throw in a check with the rook. I don't know which. I'd probably go for the check with the rook than not looking at it. Yeah, I
Why?
do like a rook. Just because it just a free move. It kind of forces them to put their bishop here, which doesn't look the best. Maybe not what they want to do right away.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And your rook wants to go to e8 anyway.
yeah,
And by playing it with check, you're also guaranteeing some kind of pressure.
yeah,
That there will always be something there if the bishop is on e3, and after something like bishop g4 castles, there's a good bit of pressure going on already. I
hmm,
mean, black, I assume, is actually, I would assume black is a bit better here. Yeah, yeah, black is. So, and to be honest, most people are going to put the knight on f3, so you'll probably have quite a good time.
hmm.
Um, okay, yeah, but I think you'll find my. I spent a very long time on the Tartakower section of that course, so I think you'll find that
Okay,
quite useful.
yeah.
Oh, this was an interesting game I wanted to look at. This is not an exchange. This is a Briar.
Mm.
Do you know what the Briar is?
No, I
Don't
feel like
worry,
I've
it's a
read
rare
it on the
one.
side.
So this is um the D3 stuff, where, to be fair, you're not supposed to take. You're really supposed to play with either of these moves.
Mm,
But okay, your opponent takes, and it kind of transposes. And I do like how you play here, with just taking some space, playing very principled chess, and punishing white for giving you the full center. What I
mhm.
really wanted to focus on, though, was this move d4.
Yeah.
What's the reasoning behind that?
Yeah, it doesn't really look like that great of a move. I feel like I kinda just lock their pawns. Like, their D pawns only pushed once. They're never gonna, like I feel like it just takes space. I don't really know if there's any other reason behind it.
Okay, okay, no, that makes sense. I think that it's often difficult to know what to do when you have these pawns in the center, and you could push e4 or d4 in theory.
Mhm.
Um, Generally, it's better to just keep the pawns as they
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
Now, I get what you're saying with trying to freeze the pawn on d3, and if d4 does freeze the pawn on d3, I might agree with you, but it does allow white
Yeah.
to trade with you, which, I mean, giving up your like d pawn for this, it's not a great trade. I
Yeah.
think in the game your opponent ended up with the pawn on c4, which was just terrible for white,
Mhm.
but um, it kind of just isn't necessary because if you just
Yeah.
develop normally, what can white do here?
Really not much. They have, I guess, development-wise, either here or here with this bishop and just castling. Uh, nothing, like nothing in the center for now,
Right,
at least.
right, and that's the big thing is if we're looking like when we have a center like this, like we want to be thinking, how can I maintain this center? Can my opponent
Mhm.
use pawn breaks to like destroy my center, right?
Yeah.
So here, I guess white has two pawn breaks, c4 or d4, right?
Mhm.
If c4, then we get the structure that we saw in the game, and
Yeah.
this is kind of just like a reverse Benoni structure, which isn't very good for white, particularly because he doesn't have the fianchettoed bishop, which would somewhat justify this.
Mhm.
I don't know if you know much about the Benoni, but uh, I mean, neither do I. I just know that's a basic
Yeah.
concept. Then the other pawn break would be d4. And what's the problem with d4?
I guess the same kind of just push, hitting their knight, kind of taking space. It's annoying now the development. I don't know. They probably have to move their knight back somewhere here. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, this can't be good, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's so bad the engine actually wants to sack a pawn
Mm.
to avoid having such a passive
Yeah.
knight. Like, it's that bad. But yeah, I was to be fair, I wasn't sure if I wanted to look at loads more here. Um, yeah, no. Then we get this structure, which just looks very good for us.
Ugh.
No, to be fair, I don't think I actually wanted to look at this past here.
Oof.
No, no. But basically, all I wanted to say was, you will sometimes get these structures where white is not going after
Mm.
your center properly. You can just defend your center. If d4 is ever played, e4, and try and
Yeah.
maintain the center, right? That's I think all I wanted to get across. To be fair, um, um no, I saw there was an advanced Caro Kann game which you played very well. Um, that was good. I actually don't know why I included that one. Ah, this was a very nice one. Yes, let me grab this. 'Cause this is basically, um, again an exchange, which went pretty perfectly for you. So we have again this knight c3, and here this h3. White's kind of getting the spirit of trying to stop you from developing your bishop, but it needs to be included with bishop d3. So I guess you're
Yeah.
starting to see people kind of getting that idea, and you will see
Mhm.
it more. So yeah, bishop b5, bishop f5. Not the most accurate, but it's perfectly fine. And this is good. You build the battery, um, and I mean your bishop is outside the pawn chain. Are we concerned about b captures on c6?
I don't. We shouldn't be, no, because I feel like actually good to have it there. You could maybe push it in the future, just take space. Not really.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, and yeah, you do, or you have to take with the B pawn anyway. But here, castles, and a lot of people playing A3. We've seen
Yeah,
that quite a few times actually, which I have to say is really interesting. I do think that you will be able to generate a lot of queenside play. Um, and I'll tell you what, we'll look at this game, and then if you want, we can look at some minority attack stuff.
yeah.
Yeah?
Hmm.
Okay, cool. So here, yeah, knight to e4 is not a very good move. Can the engine is because there's knight
Yeah.
b5, which your opponent does end up playing. But I don't like knight e4, even if takes happens, to be honest. Why do you think that might be?
I guess we're hmm, kind of trying to get something done on this side of the board, like these couple of files, and then I guess trading away their knight would open up their ability to they're more free with their pawns, if that makes sense.
More
Because
free
if
with
they
their pawns to
take
do what?
uh support their center, um, and maybe even block what we try to do. Um,
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like we said earlier, this knight on c3, it really disturbs the c pawn. Basically, it stops the c pawn from either supporting the center or attacking your center. It's completely misplaced. I will say as well, whenever we have this battery, always be aware of knight b5.
yeah.
And um there are positions where like white might have the open c file. It's more in Slav type positions where I see you also play some Slav stuff where you'll have this kind of battery. I think I'll actually show you a line in like the semi-Slav. So get like c4, c6, get the knights out. I don't know if you play the semi-Slav. I don't think you do, but you get positions with like the Cambridge Springs, knight. I think it's this. No, it's this line. You get like take, and takes, and after something like bishop d3, bishop d6, for example, this isn't quite correct, but you can often have like this queen on c2, the queen on c7, the rook on c1, and this knight coming into b5 with the pin going
Mm,
on, which doesn't actually win material for white, but it does ruin the structure a bit. So let's say we go like rook e8, knight b5. If we take, then after like take, and take, material is equal, but your structure is completely ruined. But point is, this sometimes happens in Caro positions as well. But even with the pawn technically stopping the knight coming to b5, like you always just have to watch for it. Um,
yeah.
so normally I just go for
Yeah.
a6 ideas.
Hmm.
But anyway, that was a massive tangent. Um, yeah, and this is very good. Like once you execute c5, even though you've lost your bishop, this is great because you've got the open files against white's pawns, and one of these pawns, c2 or the c or b pawns, is always going to be a bit backwards. Like if
Yeah.
white pushes the b pawn up, the c pawn will be weak, and if the c pawn comes up, then the b pawn will be weak. There's also lots of ideas of getting this pawn to a4. try and freeze the structure. So let's say
Yeah.
white just wastes a couple moves for some reason, and we get the pawn. I know f2 is hanging, but
Mm-hmm.
we get the pawn into a4. This is a great way to freeze the white structure as well. And there are lots of positions where black will have like the open b file, and there'll be pawns kind of situated like this. Wait, let me try and. If this makes sense, you'll have pawns like this where we can focus a lot of pressure on b2.
Okay.
Um, and white will be playing for like knight to e5 ideas, trying to counterattack. But what I think might be useful is if I reset the board, I play from the white side, and you go from the black side, and we just play some exchange Caro Kann positions, and you talk me through what you're thinking, and I'll talk you through what I'm thinking, yeah?
Yeah.
And I'll turn the engine off, and we're basically going to have a conversation about it. So I'll
Alright.
start with knight c3. Obviously, it's not good,
Okay.
but most people are playing it.
C6.
Mm-hmm. And
Oh yeah.
and this is good. So I'll just develop.
Mhm. Ooh. Okay. Okay. I'll just open up here. Okay. I'm gonna take so we don't get stuck with this.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I think in that particular position you
it's
can retreat, but it's not worth the risk.
yeah. Okay. Trying to think. If I do bishop or knight here, um, I'm liking, I guess, the bishop first because I could try to do something like this with my knight, maybe.
Yeah, I really like that. I think bishop d6 first to me is definitely the way to go.
Yeah.
Because I have now the dilemma of, do I trade the bishops or not? I'm playing the white pieces. Surely I should be trying for some kind of advantage.
Hmm. Now I guess now I could play here just to prevent your bishop from coming
Yeah,
in.
I really like that. I really like that. And this is the thing, like, you are delaying the development of this knight, but I have no attack, and
Yeah.
you're taking control of this really important f4 square, and e5 as well. Don't forget, it's quite important.
Hmm.
So I really like what you're doing here. And again, this knight on c3 just looks very silly. Because you kind of don't have to engage it. You just let it sit there. And if it maneuvers, okay, fine. White's wasting time. Good. Yeah. A lot of people will
Hmm.
try this e-file stuff, with trying to go after the d pawn.
Yeah.
So always watch for that. And that's one of the bonuses of knight e7. So that's good.
Okay.
So when I sometimes see knight c3 in my own games, very
Hmm.
rare, but sometimes I'll see it, people will try to maneuver it back into the game via e2 and then
Yeah.
shore up the pawn structure with c3. So you might see
Mm.
some of that as you get higher.
I guess you could just. I guess you could just go for castling right
Hmm.
now. Okay. Yeah. I feel like that's just the next move in the position.
Yeah,
Um,
it can't be a bad move.
okay. Just want to be wary of any like sacrifice. Um, but I guess I don't know. It looks fine right now. Play something like that.
Yeah, yeah, that looks very viable. And I mean, as white, you've got to be quite like I have to be quite careful here because I can go for my king side attack, but I'm always thinking like, oh, b4, that's really annoying to deal with. Like, do I really want to take that? Allow the knight in with tempo?
Mm-hmm.
Don't know if I like that. Do I want to allow takes? My c pawn is going to be a big weakness. Do I push c4? That's sometimes how people play against it. Like,
Yeah.
it's not an easy decision, and if you're giving white players these tough questions to answer, they're more likely to answer wrong if you keep posing the question. You get what I mean?
Yeah. Quick question. If I do end up getting a position where I push the B pawn,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess they do C4,
Yeah.
here you'd have to go for like a take. Oh, and then you would follow up with this, I guess.
Uh,
Or what would like the line be if something like this happened? I feel like that's doesn't look as bad for
I
white.
think black's actually
Uh,
winning there. So if I play, let's say I play a random move like King H1.
Okay, and I go here and take.
So I'm
I guess I would
pretty
do.
sure you're winning.
Yeah, it. Yeah, okay, it doesn't. Okay, it does not. It doesn't look good for white then either.
No, no,
This.
no, no. But I think there's a stronger
Oh,
move
there's
here.
a stronger move.
I mean, knight a5 is fine, but
I guess this here,
to me that looks pretty good.
and then takes. Yeah. Okay.
Because the knight covers
Yeah.
e6.
Oh, okay. My first thought was they could just sacrifice a pawn, sacrifice it for a pawn. But yeah, if it covers back, I didn't even see that.
But also the queen hangs,
And the
so it's kind of
queen.
irrelevant.
Mhm.
But yes, basically,
Yeah.
even
Okay.
if even if you weren't just winning material, let's just say you're not, and you play a move like I don't know, rook d8, let's just say,
Yeah.
and the bishop retreats. This is a very weak isolated pawn.
Mm-hmm.
Like you've effectively converted your 3 versus 4 minority into a like 3 versus 2, right?
Yeah.
So you've traded off one set of pawns, but that leaves the open d file to play against the d4 pawn, which isn't gonna. It doesn't look very easy for white to deal with. Obviously, we can't allow something like c5 because then that white's going to
Yeah.
be very happy, even if our bishop doesn't get trapped. But okay, let's go back to
Mm-hmm.
this position after b5. I'm not just going to let you do what you want to do. Let's say bishop f4. So
Okay.
there's often a battle around this diagonal. So
Yeah. With this, let me think. I'm just gonna put some arrows here. Honestly, I don't think I should respond to this by just trading for no reason. I guess I could still just push the B pawn.
yeah, I think so. I think so.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't think you do have to respond. I think you can chill and let me deal with the queen side. So that's good thinking.
Okay. Okay. I can take here. Um, yeah. Because if you take with the rook, I feel like it weakens the B pawn. Like, yeah. Okay.
What? So if
Or I could
how
be.
do you think is the best way to take here for white?
Well, I guess with this pawn would be better with the b pawn taking, but
Hmm.
even
'Cause-
that's weak too, and I have the queen already there. So
Yeah, I guess when I see this position, I feel like this is really, really weakening for me because
okay,
this pawn is going to struggle to
that's
get
even
to c4 on favorable
yeah.
terms because I mean, even if I do make it there, let's say like, I don't know, rook d8, c4, take. Okay, I trade off that pawn, great, but I still have the d pawn, which is
Hmm.
still very weak. So to me, it makes more sense for me to take with the rook because yes, my b pawn is weak, but maybe I can convert this into a passed pawn in the future.
Yeah,
And if anything comes to the b file, b3 should be fine for now, if nothing else.
yeah.
And then it'll take this pawn time to get down the board.
Hmm. Okay, yeah, yeah. And then um, okay, so if you take with the rook here, I'd probably just continue with pushing the a pawn, just like you said before, to try to freeze this or
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, this is not an easy position to play for white because the whole problem with me having to mess around with maneuvering my knight has given you time to launch the minority attack, right?
Yeah.
And now I'm having to deal with the consequences of that, and I'm not a fan of them.
Okay. So let's push the a pawn. Um,
Yeah, I think you're starting to get the ideas of these exchange positions, at least this particular
mhm.
sort of line. Because I'm struggling to come up with any kind of attacking idea because I can't really do anything on the light squares. The knight will always block very easily, and uh, even just the pawn blocking will be fine as well. And I'm wasting my time. Um, which is, I mean, part of the reason the knight is better on e7. It's less vulnerable than it is on f6 to like bishop g5 stuff as well. Because worst case, if bishop g5 happens, you can go f6 sometimes, but with a lot of caution. Um, yeah, I suppose I can probably get away with this.
Hmm, interesting. Hmm, yeah. Okay. Let me just check what happens if I do something like no, no. I guess we can play here. Just, oh no. Ooh.
I mean, to be fair,
That's yeah.
yeah, I
That
think you are
doesn't work.
losing here,
Yeah, that's bad. Yeah,
but
it doesn't work.
let's sure, I'm beating you tactically here because I'm using the C file against you, which can happen in some of these minority attack
Yeah.
positions. And one thing I will say is that you're not obliged to take. Like, you
Hmm.
can. I mean, if I turn on the engine here, this is basically equal. The engine does like taking. That's the best move according to the engine. and it does prefer b takes as well. I think there were tactical problems on f4. I think that was why rook takes doesn't quite work out. There's queen b6 actually
Oh,
at the end of the line, which is worth noting, which I mean can be
mm,
difficult to see through everything that's going on, because I was only considering this, and
yeah,
I was like, well, I'm
yeah.
just winning here, so that's fine. So your opponents aren't going to see all of the best lines in those positions, but the opening was great. Very, very happy with the opening. Um, I think it punished the placement of the knight on c3 very well,
Mm-hmm.
because it served absolutely no function. By not engaging with it in any way, it just didn't do anything,
Yeah.
right? And then I have to waste time maneuvering, which is the best move, but it would be better if I just brought it to d2 in the first place, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it could support the knight on f3. And so if bishop takes f3, I could have taken with the knight and played for knight e5 stuff, which is a better way to go about it. So, for example, if we play again from this position and I play, let's say, knight f3,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not going to put my knight on c3 this time, and I'll see if I can show you more so what white should be going for.
Should yeah. Now here I can just go with c6 again, or do you think it should be like starting with the
No,
bishop? No, okay.
no. Knight c6 is definitely the way to go. And something to note here is that you do want to develop the bishop for sure, but
Mm-hmm.
if you go bishop g4, then h3 is a good move, but also bishop e2 I think is also fine for white. I mean, the engine likes this for black, but for me, I kind of like to use this as a bit of a delaying move and be like, okay, if the bishop goes to e2, well, then I
Yeah.
feel like this bishop is quite good on f5,
Mm-hmm.
looking down this diagonal because it's uncontested. Whereas if the bishop comes to d3, well, then the bishop makes a lot of sense on g4 because this is just a very nice pin.
Yeah.
So it's like somewhat of a waiting move, but you're always going to want the knight on c6, realistically.
Mm-hmm.
It's never going anywhere else.
Can you excuse me just for like 1 minute?
Yeah,
Sorry.
no worries, mate. No worries. So yeah, the knight is always good on c6, basically. So let's say I go bishop to d3.
Okay. Here, I guess we could go with this now.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely the way to go. And so this is a far more proper setup for white.
Yeah. Liking this first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, I think this is a really good and easy way to develop in these positions, because you're getting to this diagonal before I do, and I mean, this is never going to be bad
Mm-hmm.
to have a look at, right?
Yeah. Okay. Now, in this position, I like sliding back here. Let me think.
Tell me what you're thinking.
So I'm thinking if I slide back, there's really no risk to that because they're never, if they play something like this, it's just not good, like weakening the king.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just get to keep this pin. So it could be pretty annoying for white. And then
Mm-hmm.
just taking, I feel I don't really, taking doesn't really give me anything. So I think sliding back here is a little better.
Yeah, and to be fair, I think both are probably valid moves, but bishop h5, I would say makes more sense because,
Hmm.
uh, particularly because of how strong my bishop is once you castle. It's
Yeah.
probably good to keep the counterpart on the board for the time being. You can always take the knight later if you want. So the difference with this line for white is that I get to put the knight on d2, which means that I can
Hmm.
relieve the queen of her defensive duties at some point, which is a big difference with this pin.
Yeah. Now, guess I would just go for this. Now, in what cases should I be putting the knight on f6?
Um, to be fair, I think in general the knight is quite good on e7
Hmm.
because it can block the knight on f6 defends the light squares, right? But
Yeah.
bringing the knight to g6 also defends the light squares, and in some ways it does it better.
Hmm.
You can put the knight on f6, but from my experience, whenever I play knight f6, it's either the same as playing knight e7 or it's worse.
Yeah. Okay.
So I've just started playing knight e7 basically every time. It
Hmm.
also gives a bit of flexibility with the f pawn, because sometimes you actually want to go for this, or even f5 to, like, if you
Yeah.
really need to shut this down for some reason. Obviously, watch e6, but it's worth noting.
Hmm. Okay. Now here, I guess I can just go for this to block that.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is a very good way to fight against the battery from
Yeah.
white, is to bring the bishop back to g6. And yeah, because of the way you set up here, it's quite hard for me to generate attacking ideas, um, which is just because you've set up well. I think that if the knight were on f6, I might feel like I have more possibilities of knight e5 as well.
Yeah.
Because if the knight is on f6, I probably play knight e5 here, because if take, then I
It's a
fork.
fork. Yeah.
Whereas with the knight on e7, I don't really want this trade. If I can trade for the
Hmm.
bishop, then fine, but not for the knight.
So here, I like this. Um,
Yeah,
just if this happens.
yeah, and I think that's perfectly valid. And by playing queen c7, you're also, yeah, controlling f4 and just really trying to dominate the e5 square, which
Yeah.
is white typically the main point of play for white. So you're taking away basically everything I want with knight e5, which is very frustrating to play from the white side.
Hmm. Okay. Hmm.
And I guess this is where you tend to struggle.
Yeah, I'm looking at I don't like takes. I'm looking at kind I'm looking at F4 as well, but which
Okay.
isn't too bad.
Well, should I tell you what I think when I look at your position?
Hmm.
I think that all your minor pieces are perfectly placed.
Okay.
I think your queen is well placed. I think you could make a case for bringing a rook to c8, but to be honest, I would just get pushing.
Just here.
Yeah, because
Okay.
if you could magically teleport this pawn to b4 right now, I think you'd do
Uh,
it.
yes. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can either go for that plan with rook to b8, b5, b4, or a6, b5, b4. Either can be done.
Okay. Yeah. I feel like the reason I didn't see that in like quicker is usually I'm like you actually set up nice here, but usually I'm looking at like to kick the bishop away, but I can just start the
Right.
attack and just go for it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is why I played this line in particular, is because my attack isn't landing. Right, not yet anyway. I will try to make it land, but you have time here, and you
Mhm.
don't need to do anything insane. You don't need to, like, bishop f4, good to be aware of that move, but you don't need it right now. It doesn't do anything. Your pieces are perfectly placed, you know? Like I say,
Yeah.
maybe this rook comes to b8 or to d8. Sorry, c8 even. Maybe it comes over there, but this is definitely the plan. So if you can
Yeah.
execute b4, you're going to be very happy, and you're going to have a lot of pressure on the queen side. It's difficult for me to play against
Hmm.
this, so I'll try. I'll try and make things interesting.
Okay. Knight there. Okay, so you have some pressure on here on e5. Um,
hmm And this is kind of the culmination of my position, is going for knight e5.
yeah.
And I
Trying to
mean,
think if I do play something like this.
but can you stop knight e5?
Hmm.
It might be my plan to play knight to e5, but it doesn't end the game, right?
Yeah, I guess this taking here and then maybe playing g6 with this knight. Potentially, you could get more like pieces on that.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea
Uh,
at all.
yeah, okay, I'll go for that.
Yeah, I think if I quickly just whack the engine on in this position, um, knight b4 is actually playable, which I have to say I missed.
Before, oh yeah, because now the knight moves away, and it's only the bishop on here.
Yeah, because I
Okay.
needed to be defending my queen, so
Yeah.
same with this setup. You've always got to watch for knight b5. Same with this, watching for knight b4. So yeah, worth noting that. But this is still fine. I assume b5 is also fine. There's
Hmm.
not necessarily a correct plan in these
Yeah.
positions. Um, but having a plan is what you want, and bishop d3, that is a plan. Trying to stop me playing knight to e5, I think that's perfectly viable. And I mean, there's also another added bonus of the knight on g6. Exactly. And then
Yeah.
hopefully you see the
Hmm.
use of the battery now. And I have to say, it's tough to come up with a move here for black. Sorry, for white even. The thing is, in these positions, I've often found, like, playing this from the black side, even in equal positions, I just find it so much easier because it's like, well, b5, b4. I mean,
Hmm.
that seems relatively simple, whereas white, the plans seem a little bit more complicated.
Okay.
But I'll try to play in the spirit of this variation and try to attack.
Um. Okay. I don't think that really does much. Like even something like this would be fine because I have my bishop there. So I guess we could do b5
I think that's a fair evaluation.
here. Okay. Yeah, now you get that. But
Yeah,
if
but I don't think you
material,
could have stopped it.
yeah, and I feel like if material comes off the board, I have more like initiative and that kind of attack kind of
Yeah,
isn't existent.
I would agree.
Um,
I think that you know, if we were left with two rooks each, I find these endgames far easier from the black side because there's just more obvious targets.
I guess I'll take with the knight first.
Yeah, and I think there's a good chance you will get endgames somewhat like this. Um,
Hmm.
in possibly identical structures, maybe not with my pawn on h5, but other than that, pretty identical.
Now that there's no knight here, I'm trying to see what would happen. Um, guess I would have to bring my other rook across, but I don't want to leave anything weak
It
for
is a
attack.
difficult one. It is a difficult one.
Um, I could do this. Now that's not. Um,
I think you're getting the ideas of the position though, for sure, which is great.
I guess I'm stuck between C8 here or B8. Um,
I think there's a third option for
there's
black
a
as
third
well.
option.
I think
Okay.
queen c4 should be considered.
Queen C4. Yeah. I wow. I this is I don't know if you saw me draw this arrow, but I did
I did.
C4 this and then like that's ridiculous. So yeah, C4.
But I think
Yeah,
like
definitely looks correct.
I think if I take, I would assume I have to be worse.
Yes, because of just the B pawn.
And by the way, this is the kind of structure I was talking about before, where you can often get, let's just waste a move or something for white.
Hmm.
You can often get this kind of thing, where black just
Yeah.
has a obvious plan of applying pressure to b2. And maybe black can't break through, but like, I mean, even if you draw this with black, or you have a position where it's an endgame and you're either going to win or draw, I mean, you can't be mad about that with the black pieces, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so, I mean, I don't think the queen is touchable, personally. I think I have to
Hmm.
move my queen because that looks way too bad to go for. And I mean, getting a queen into c4, that's always going to be a good thing. It also supports
Yeah.
b4.
And now here, just got to make sure I don't. There's nothing particularly uh, here. Um, like it doesn't look terrible. So I think just going for b4 straight away because like it could also it weakens the d pawn.
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah. And then I was thinking I could push here. Oh. um
So yeah, I think white is probably a good bit
Probably
better
winning.
here. Yeah.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
but the thing is, right, this is an excellent example of how these exchange positions can go, where you're on the money with this attack on the queen side. That's exactly the right thing to be doing. But my attack has just landed a little bit quicker on the king side. And it is always difficult because obviously, if my attack on the king side
Uh,
lands, it's game over.
yeah. I could have done, I guess, h6 earlier just to stop. Would that have been a thing
I think
beforehand?
I think that's probably the way to go. Yeah.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I drew out this exact situation as well. I just
um,
yeah.
but no, like other than that, you played that position very well. Um, here actually, apparently white is winning after g3, which
Mm,
I did look at playing for h6, but I thought there were
the
issues with
sacrifice.
this, which is actually
There
losing for
are.
me. Here I have to find knight g5, and okay, yeah, that
Knight
whatever,
g5.
because this opens up and
Oh,
this is
yeah.
threatened. So
Jeez.
realistically though, looking at it purely from a positional perspective, I'm happy with how you played that. I think that was very good. I think that's kind of a cult. The like kind of two games we've played there have been a good culmination of everything we've talked through here. So yeah, I think that's brilliant, and particularly with the knight c3 stuff, I will keep an eye on your account and please keep me updated with it. But
Mhm.
I think you'll definitely crush some people in those lines and just get much better positions.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions before we finish up?
Yeah, so I guess for the school thing, oh, I guess a couple questions.
Yeah, yeah.
Not just directly like with this like system or anything. For the school thing, is that like I would log in and then you have like your Caro Kann course on there?
Yeah, yeah, I'll give you an invite to it.
Okay.
It's pretty intuitive. That don't worry about it.
Okay. And
I'll
then
in
how would you
fact I will end the recording now.
yeah.